The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. These words have crossed centuries, whispered by kings at war, by mothers in despair, by broken men before the silence of God. They are engraved on tombstones and in the depths of the soul of those seeking solace. But what if I told you that this verse speaks not only of faith, but also of mindset, of an invisible code that, when understood, transforms the way you relate to money, scarcity, and success? Napoleon, he, the author of the classic Think and Grow Rich, spent decades studying the minds of the world's most prosperous men. After interviewing over 500 millionaires, he noticed something surprising. They all believed that success begins in the mind and that faith is a practical force, not just a spiritual one. And Psalm 23 already knew this. The Lord is my shepherd. This phrase is not a poetic metaphor, it is a statement of identity. The psalmist declares who is in control, who guides their steps, who provides. And right after, I shall not want. Note, he does not say, I hope nothing is lacking, or maybe I will have enough. He states with emotional certainty that nothing will be lacking. This is living faith. Hill called this state absolute conviction. He said everything the human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But he emphasized, it's not enough to just conceive. You must believe with emotion and constancy until that belief becomes dominant in the subconscious mind. Now think, how many times have you repeated Psalm 23 without truly believing that nothing would be lacking? Many people repeat powerful words but live dominated by scarcity. They have faith on Sunday but fear on Monday. They dream big but act small. And what Hill discovered, and the Bible already taught, is that the mind must be convinced before reality obeys. This is the first pillar of transformation, faith as a creative force. Hill said faith is the only antidote to failure because it transforms doubt into action, fear into movement, scarcity into abundance. And the Bible confirms this with every line of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. This phrase is, in essence, an affirmation of mental and spiritual alignment. It's as if saying, because I know who guides me, I am no longer guided by fear. And this silent conviction has creative power. It is what reprograms your subconscious. It is what changes your vibration. It is what moves you from a survival mindset and places you on the path of true abundance. But why then do so many continue to live trapped in lack? Because between repeating a psalm and living the psalm, there is an abyss. Many people want change without transformation. They want prosperity without repositioning the mind. They want a harvest without replanting beliefs. Napoleon Hill knew this. That's why he insisted on the importance of autosuggestion, the emotional repetition of phrases and truths that over time build a new internal identity. And the Bible already said, faith comes by hearing and hearing the word. Repetition, depth, absorption. If you wake up every day saying, it's hard, money is tight, life isn't helping, then you are feeding the kind of faith that creates scarcity. But when you affirm with conviction, I shall not want, even when everything outside seems to be lacking, you send a deep command to your mind. I trust, I persist, I grow, and that's when the invisible begins to move. Perhaps you are living exactly the opposite right now. Perhaps bills are overdue, your mind is heavy, and your faith is weak. But if you keep saying, I shall not want, every day, even with tears in your eyes, something within you begins to resist the fall. This is the secret Rio realized. Success belongs to those who act despite doubt. The faith that moves is the faith that insists. And this is in Psalm 23, line by line. The Lord is my shepherd, a decision of who guides me. I shall not want, a decision of what I believe. This sequence changes everything. While the world runs desperately after more money, more status, more answers, the psalmist reminds us of something more powerful, the peace of those who already know they are being cared for. And being cared for doesn't mean inertia, it means trust. It's the foundation that allows action with courage. It's as if Psalm 23 says, you can work hard because the fear of lack no longer controls you. You can dream big because you know who sustains your steps. You can invest in yourself because the source never runs dry. This faith is not passive, it is active. It is the same that moved kings, prophets, inventors, and entrepreneurs. It is the faith that turns words into convictions and convictions into reality. That's why, if you've made it this far, read this phrase with your heart. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Read it again, but now as one who decides, as one who plants a new seed in the mind. And if you feel this is the moment to turn the key, do the following. Comment below, I shall not want. This comment is more than a click. It is the beginning of a new conversation between you and your future because, as Napoleon Hill once said, everything begins with a decision. And as Psalm says, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. If the first verse of Psalm 23 teaches us that faith is the foundation of abundance, this second one reveals something even deeper. True prosperity begins in the rest of the soul. But don't be mistaken, this rest is not laziness, inertia, or comfort zone. It's clarity, it's alignment, it's the inner peace of someone who already knows where they are going and why they are going. Napoleon Hill, in studying the greatest achievers of his generation, noticed something that few valued. Before any external achievement, these people had inner tranquility. They knew what they wanted, they thought clearly, and kept their minds free from anxiety and blind rush. Hill called this mental mastery or harmony with infinite intelligence. A noisy mind does not attract clarity. An agitated soul does not recognize opportunity. And that's why many people live busy lives but do not progress. Now, see how the psalm describes God's action. He makes me lie down in green pastures. It's not just a beautiful scene, it's a strategic pause. It's the image of someone who, even surrounded by tasks and pressures, learns to rest without the fear of losing. Have you noticed how the greatest entrepreneurs and leaders are, at their core, calm? They don't rush. They walk steadily. They don't speak much. They speak with direction. They don't react. They choose how to act. Napoleon Hill explained that one of the most important qualities of an achiever is firm decision-making and calm action. And this calm comes from conviction, that silent certainty that if something hasn't manifested yet, it's because it is being prepared. The problem is that most people live in a constant state of urgency. They wake up late. They make decisions out of fear, skip steps, constantly compare themselves, and they end up surrounded by noise, excess, confusion. But the Bible says, He leads me beside still waters. See, it's not pushed nor forced, led gently. And Hill said something similar. The mind needs direction, not shouts. You need to think calmly and act with determination. Now stop for a moment, breathe, close your eyes for a few seconds and try to imagine, what would your green pastures look like today? Maybe it's a project that brings meaning, not just money. Maybe it's a more balanced life, with less rush and more presence. Or maybe it's simply being able to make decisions with peace, without the weight of external pressure. And still waters are the image of a soul in harmony, of a heart that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, of a mind that does not sabotage itself with fast-paced thoughts, but trusts in the right timing. Hill taught that clarity is one of the most powerful weapons of achievement. When you know what you want, in detail, with purpose, with conviction, the entire universe begins to align around it. But when the mind is divided, confused, filled with noise, everything becomes slower, more frustrating. Peace is the channel through which ideas flow. Calm is the soil where solutions sprout, and direction is only revealed to those who learn to silence the excesses. That's why Jesus withdrew to pray. That's why prophets spent days in silence. And that's why the great achievers of today practice visualization, morning silence, fasting from distractions. They understood. Those who don't stop to listen, live running without knowing where they're going. Have you allowed yourself to lie in your green pastures? Have you trusted enough to be led without anxiety? Have you been living with rush or with purpose? That's the difference between a reactive life and a guided life. Perhaps, without realizing it, you've been trying to do everything with your own hands for years and are tired. Or perhaps you're in the midst of important decisions, but your mind is so noisy that you don't even know where to start. If this is your case, listen to what the psalm is saying. Rest in trust. Be led again. Silence the excess. Hill said that faith without direction is wasted energy, but faith with clarity turns into powerful action. And here's a key point. You don't need to wait until you have time to experience this peace. You can start now. Close your eyes for 2 minutes, breathe deeply, and say, Lord, lead me beside still waters, show me the way. Make it a habit, write it down, declare it, visualize it. And if these words have touched your spirit, comment below. I choose peace before progress. Because true progress does not come from chaos, it comes from awareness and faith. In the next verses, the psalm will show you how to cross the valley of the shadow of death and still fear no evil. But before that, learn to trust in the rhythm of heaven, points of calm. It's the space where wisdom appears. Peace is the soil where the next level is planted. And it all starts when you decide to stop running and learn again to be led. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. This is perhaps the most quoted verse of Psalm 23, and also the deepest, because here it's no longer about provision or rest, it's about walking through chaos with the soul standing tall. The psalmist does not say, if I pass through the valley, he says, when, because those who live with purpose know that sooner or later they will face the darkness. The valley is not optional, it's part of the journey. Napoleon Hill knew this. He spent much of his life studying how ordinary men became extraordinary and discovered that most of them faced moments of deep pain, loss, humiliation, failure, scarcity, and fear. And what set apart those who succeeded? The way they crossed the valley. Hill wrote, every failure carries with it the seed of an equivalent benefit. Fear is the greatest thief of dreams in the history of mankind. Persistence is sustained effort fueled by faith. Notice how this echoes the same message from the psalm. You don't need to avoid the valley, you need to trust in who walks with you. The psalmist did not say he didn't feel danger, he said he feared no evil, because fear paralyzes, distorts vision, and destroys initiative. Hill dedicated an entire chapter of Think and Grow Rich to the 6 basic fears that hinder achievement: fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of illness, fear of loss, fear of old age, and fear of death. He explained that all these fears originate in the subconscious mind. They are installed through past experiences, limiting education, and a society conditioned by scarcity. The psalmist, on the other hand, makes the opposite movement. He reprograms the mind through faith. He says, even in the valley I will fear no evil. This no. To fear is a decision. It's not the absence of fear, it's leadership over fear. It's the same type of decision that led Thomas Edison to try over 1,000 times before creating the light bulb, that led Henry Ford to go bankrupt several times before revolutionizing the industry, that made Walt Disney continue even after being rejected by dozens of banks. They all went through valleys, but they kept their vision and courage. Hill said, faith is the only antidote to fear. Where there is true faith, fear cannot survive. Psalm 23 shows us this clearly. For you are with me. It's the awareness of divine presence that sustains courage. How many times have you refrained from acting because of fear? Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of losing time, money, reputation. And if what you are calling prudence is nothing more than fear disguised as logic, Hill teaches that those who prosper are the ones who decide to act even without guarantees. They feel the fear, but they don't stop. They enter the valley, but with their eyes fixed on the other side. The valley of the shadow can take many forms. Sometimes it's a tough financial phase, other times an unexpected diagnosis, a betrayal, a breakdown, a project that didn't work out, an existential void. But pay attention. The text doesn't say the valley of death. It says the valley of the shadow of death, and shadows only exist where there is light. What scares you today may just be a shadow cast by your insecurity. It's not the end. It's the middle. It's the space between the starting point and the promise. But in this space, fear speaks loudly. And if you're not firm in the "for you are with me," fear wins. That's why this part of the psalm is essential. It reminds us that it's not the absence of difficulties that makes us strong. It's the awareness that we are not alone. If you trust, you will cross. If you act with faith, you will overcome. And Hill said, failure only defeats those who quit too soon. Persistence is faith in motion. Now look at your life. In which area did you stop because of fear? Which decision did you postpone? Why did the valley seem too dark? What idea did you suppress because you didn't want to take the risk? What version of you is buried under doubt? If this part of the psalm is speaking to you, then you need to do what few do. Face the valley with faith, not blind faith, firm faith, faith that walks, faith that declares, I am not alone. Perhaps all you need right now is not more certainty. It's more courage. It's not more control. It's more trust. And it's not more proof. It's more presence. Because as the text says, for you are with me. And that's enough. If this passage touched your heart, your spirit, leave a comment below. Even in the valley, I press on. This is the type of declaration that seals faith. It turns fear into fuel, and it paves the way for what comes next. Because the crossing may be hard, but the promise remains intact. Comment below. Even in the valley, I press on. This is the pact of courage and proof that you were not created to stop halfway. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. After the dark valley, after the crossing, after the tested faith, comes the time for permanence. This verse is a seal, a reminder that for those who don't give up, the reward never fails. And that true prosperity is not just what you achieve, it's what accompanies you. Napoleon Hill said that success is not an isolated event. It's not a momentary peak. It's a conscious construction of principles that produce consistent results and echo beyond your own story. That's why he talked so much about a definite purpose, about living with a why greater than profit. Because prosperity born of the ego dries up, but that born from a mission endures. Look at what the psalm declares. Goodness and mercy shall follow me. It's not something that comes from the outside. It's something that flows from within and reverberates around. It's a type of life that, when lived with faith and purpose, leaves traces of healing, impact, transformation. It's the legacy of those who understood the cycle. Faith that declares, I shall not want. Trust that rests, green pastures and still waters, courage that crosses, the valley of the shadow. And now, the fruit, goodness that follows, mercy that sustains, presence that remains. Hill taught that true wealth is not about how much you have, but how much you leave when you go. And the Bible confirms this. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This dwelling is not just a physical place, it is a state of mind. It is the peace of someone who lives aligned with eternal principles. It is the firmness of someone who is not at the mercy of the market, trends or opinions, but of values that do not change over time. Have you noticed that the men and women most respected in history were not the wealthiest, but the most consistent? Those who day after day maintained their integrity, those who built with vision, those who thought beyond their bank account, those who left something more valuable than fortune, inspiration. Hill said, "And those who live with abundance naturally become a source of goodness." But notice, the verse doesn't say that goodness and mercy will appear once in a while. It says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." This speaks of constancy, of intentional living, of alignment. And this is where the journey is completed. You begin by saying and end by affirming that goodness follows you every day. Because the mind that believes creates, the soul that trusts crosses, and the heart that remains flourishes. That's why Napoleon Hill didn't just teach about money. He spoke about character, vision, persistence, love for others, wisdom. He said that a true achiever is not measured by the wealth they accumulate, but by the life they inspire, the pain they alleviate, the paths they open. And this is also the calling of Psalm 23, not just to be a survivor, but a builder of paths. You were not created to exist only for yourself. You were created to leave a trail of goodness, transformation, and presence. And the secret to that is the decision to live with a firm mind on principles. Today, you can choose. Live one more day chasing after things, or walk with the certainty that what follows you is greater than what you chase. Goodness, mercy, peace, purpose. This is the true package of wealth, and it is available to anyone who chooses to live guided, not distracted, aligned, not rushed, convinced, not anxious. If this last part spoke to you, write in the comments, "My legacy will be greater than my ambition." This phrase is not an ending, it is a new beginning. Because those who understand Psalm 23 live with a mindset of abundance and a heart of eternity. And as Napoleon Hill taught us, lasting success belongs to those who plant ideas that transform the world.